So, hello there, I guess, is the way we should start.
Hello. Hi. Sophie and I are in the back of a Toyota hatchback overlooking an area in Harriman State Park. So we had some thoughts last night about just getting back into the podcast as a means of getting out of our heads. And what I mean by that is that as long as we're thinking about trying to do something, it means we're not actually doing it. So we pulled up in the car and we popped out the back and we set up our laptops and our microphones and we decided to just do it. So very exciting. And in other news, it's a very exciting moment for Sophie because after sharing a one-bedroom apartment with her, seeing her practice her guitar skills for the last year and her singing, she's put it out to the public and she just posted her first Instagram. So if you're listening, go to her Instagram and go support her because she wrote the song on the spot and it's really beautiful and I'm really proud of her.
Hey, everybody. Hey, whoever's listening. I'm also here in a state park in a trunk of a car with our podcast microphones on, holding, not on. Although we do hope one day to get those mics that can attach to your shirt. Yeah, feels good to podcast right now because there's like crazy stuff happening, honestly. Like Daisy said, I've been playing the guitar for a year, writing music for a year, and it's like interesting because when I say I've been doing it, I don't even know how it's been happening. And to go back to what Daisy's saying, the foundation of it all is that so much of it has happened without me thinking about it. It's been this evolution of connecting to my inner well, full of colors and full of song lyrics and poetic writings and book ideas. And that journey of getting there wasn't quick. And yeah, so today I finally was like, I've been working through, maybe we could talk about this today. Like, I've been working through like so many fears of it's time to share the music, it's time to share it. And I had done a lot of open mics and stuff, but social media is just, it felt more real on social media. I feel like the open mics were kind of like practice rounds, I guess. So yeah, it all just happened pretty magically.
Well, I said something last night to you when we were talking along the terms of you're either creating or you're not. And I said that as if I were like looking in the mirror, looking back at myself because we stopped the podcast for like a year. We had a few episodes, but you guys obviously know that. And there was many decisions that led up to that, but ultimately it sucked to not create. And I realized how much creating of any form, but especially creation that you're putting out for other people to see, how much that contributes to my well-being, my expression, and how important that is for my well-being. So these two things, I mean, it makes complete sense that the day that you posted your guitar of what you've been working on the last year on social media, that we are here recording this episode. It's, you're either doing it or you're not. And when I say that, what I mean is that you're either taking action or you're not. And action can be a million different things. Action does not equate to perfection. Action generally is going to put you into a flow state, and things are coming back as we're sitting here doing this because as we're holding the mics, it holds a special space for us. And to be able to have that space, it does allow you to be able to kind of let go and to just jump in. Like, the ball game has started. Like, you're in the game. Like, you're not thinking about making the shot as you do the free throw shot in basketball. Like, that's the beauty of like playing, of being in the game. And I think the act of creating of any form, whatever comes naturally to you. And this is I mean, look, we haven't done this for a year. And like when we started this podcast, it changed my life because I learned to express, I learned to put myself out there, and that changed me for good. And not having that for the last year, I think I'm probably going to have a lot of contrast in understanding like what creation brings. And I think everyone who's not creating and like sees someone creating and feels a stomach pain, it's because like you want to be doing that, and that has been my experience for the last year. So I think you found another medium, Soph, and I think that's really beautiful. And I see how, I've been podcast freelancing and how like I've been missing the point. It's like the point is to create myself too. That's what fuels the excitement with helping others create. But ultimately, I guess my main point is that we can be so hard on ourselves. And I think the antidote to that is to create. And then when we share that creations with even a few people who resonate, it is so special and meaningful because the deepest part of you is being accepted and loved. And that is so beautiful. And I've really learned creation, the act of creating anything, allows us to tap into that state of being, that state of flow that allows us to actually live. And again, for me, removing this from my life for a year, I really see that. I see the impacts of that. And I think also with you, Soph, seeing the impacts of like all of the internal experiences you had with the guitar and the singing and all the behind the scenes and like just posting and how good it feels to put yourself out there. Because like, what do you think that means? Like when you have been doing something for so long and then you put it out there, like what does that bring up?
Well, yesterday I was on a creative call through my friend George Poulos. Check out his Instagram. He hosts these weekly creative freedom calls, which are really, really awesome. And something someone said on that call, and again, like having a forum when you're creating where you can chat openly and be held in that space, I find very, very impactful. So joining that call yesterday was very impactful on me in having a space to be held, really, and to talk openly about what you're creating. But someone on the call said, when you're creating, for me personally, I went through a large process, or I went through a process of creating just for me. And the guitar and singing was born out of me not looking for anything but to connect to myself. I wasn't doing it to share it. I remember vividly like picking up the guitar in Austin on the couch and just being like, okay, like I used to play all the time as I actually have played my whole life. It's just something I've always done to connect to myself. And then something happened where it kept pulling me towards it again and again and again. And then all of a sudden in December, I wrote my own song. Well, actually, I wrote a lot of songs. In July, I wrote songs. I have been writing songs constantly, but I didn't even know that. I didn't really know, because again, there's so many judgments and layers to understand. Oh, this is actually a really valuable piece of work. Because when you first, it like dumps out, I'm like, oh, you can't see it clearly. So after all that process came to, its completion of, I've been holding this all to myself. I have this music that's moving me immensely. This music I put on. I put it on in the car. I put it on in my headphones. Like I started listening to my own creation as a way for me to feel what I was feeling and help me connect to what I was feeling. And going back to the call yesterday, somebody said there comes to a point where it's not for you anymore. Whether that's a specific writing you wrote and that helped you get through a hard time, or for me, I have this whole repertoire of music that's going to go into an album that was getting me through a very hard time. And now I'm out of that time. It doesn't mean I'm not going through life, but the point is, it's like I use music as a mechanism to process. And this is what art does. It's a magical vehicle for us to take this pain or intensity or confusion we're experiencing, metamorphose it, and let it come out in colors or sound or this other way of hearing and experiencing it. So then once it does, and once it's found its shape, and for me, I found my voice, then it got to the point where I'm like, I feel that I need to share this voice.
I feel like a part of the process that you were describing that came up for me of going through the creation process is it's like there's like you're slaying something inside of you that says you can't do this. Like you're actively Like I think of the Roman stadium of like when they would have like two people like face each other for pure entertainment to watch one die and see who won. It almost feels like when you're creating, like that's happening inside of you, but like they're both versions of yourself. And as one is all of the things that you don't think that you're worthy or you're deserving, or you don't think that whatever like your internal battles are. And I think the part of you that wins, that ultimately kills that other version, is the part of you that rises above all of that, rises above the thought, rises above the patterns, the conditionings, and all of that. And it allows you to tap into this magical space of where you're not thinking about yourself at all. And you're just enjoying the moment. And you're able to connect to something larger that gives you this beautiful output, whatever that is. And I think that actual act of what's happening inside of us, it's like, to me, it's such a feeling. And I think that was like something that I learned from this podcast of like, your brain's telling you one thing, and then the other part of the brain's like, no, keep going, keep going. And then you come out on the other end. And like for you, when you posted the video today of you playing the guitar, like it was all goodwill. It was all exciting. So it all made you feel like you won because you did it and you believed in yourself and you put yourself out there and you're like, yeah, I'm confident in that. And I put it out there and I believe in myself. It's like a reflection of the internal journey you've gone through the past year and a completion of that cycle.
And something, well, this is a very important note to reference, I think. So, if you look at my life holistically, before I was trying to figure out what I want to do, I was figuring out, how do I live at peace? How do I live relaxed? How do I live connected to myself? And yesterday, just to back up, yesterday I was doing a Ram Dass meditation, and he was speaking about and reminding, or I was being reminded of, how to go within, how there's this inner light in all of us. There's this inner world. And in this morning, this morning today, I knew I was going to post a video, and I was going through my head, and I was like, I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to do breath work. I'm going to do meditation. Like, this is the foundational food, if you will, that has been feeding my body. And then I was doing like Om and breath work, and then something hit. I was like, oh, that's where all of this was born from. Like, that's where this music was born from, through meditation, through yoga, through literally being at Flow Yoga in Austin and having instructors help me like connect to my breath and like, oh, not because I was trying to sing, but because I was trying to feel. And I just want to note that, because having that reminder as I'm transitioning to, now I'm going to share this art externally, and that sharing can come with so much internal pressure of, how do I record it? What song am I going to share? How am I going to look when I do it? This process that's very logic and rationally driven. And I caught myself in that, and I was like, wait, heart space. It doesn't come from up here. So, Daisy, what I wanted to say that was interesting is that when you decide one part of your brain says this and the other part of your brain says this, I almost was going to say and this is what George kept reminding me yesterday in the call, was that it almost comes to the point where you're not up here anymore. It actually is. It's not about any of this. I'm pointing to my head. It's about, what is this saying? What is my heart saying? And the physical process of being able to physically lead life through your heart. I looked up yesterday on ChatGPT, how do I connect to my heart space? It's like, a what? Like, how do you do that? Like, our mind is so prominent in most of our experience. So just to summarize, a reminder of the foundation of yoga, meditation, and breath work. How beautiful for me to remind myself that that was where this all started, and staying connected to that.
Yeah, I have a couple of things to reply to those two things. I think one being what you mentioned about like the headspace of like the two enemies, one and the other. I think I almost thought of it as like, bring that down into the body, because like the body is like where you do feel, like it all goes back to like feeling. And I guess like that depiction of like one part of you versus another, it can be in the brain, and it also it can be like in the body, like the feeling, like butterflies or nervousness. Like those are all feelings, I think, of your body saying, oh, like don't do this, don't do this. But like you do it anyway. Like I think it is all like a physical experience, you know? And I think the other thing that you said, like all of this was born out of like yoga and meditation for you. I think the same thing is happening in yoga. It is preparing you to like let go. It is allowing you to let go. You know, it's like you have those two things inside of you of being like, oh, I hate this pose. I hate this pose. This is so uncomfortable. The last thing I want to do is breathe. This is so uncomfortable. I feel like I'm dying. I hate this. I hate this. It's, I think, like yoga, it's straight to like the nervous system. Like it's a full body relax. So I think those two things are actually really similar. I think the reason that I brought up I love creating is because it gets me into the same place that yoga gets me. They're kind of the same thing in that way. And I think that's why people love teaching yoga and they spend their whole life doing that, because it is, in a way, whenever you create a class or for yourself, it's like you're in the act of creating. Like yoga in a way is that. And I don't know, maybe people might disagree with that because it is a long lineage of cultural experience that goes side and side with that. But I guess that's kind of my interpretation of it. It feels like yoga is the act of creating for yourself whenever you go to do it, because it's going from something that wasn't to something that you actively did. And it's like you get to create each day. I guess there's so many different ways to create, you know? There is the whole thing of going and filming yourself and putting yourself on social media, whatever that may be doing. There's also the small moments in each day that you can create for yourself if you're looking at it that way. And I think really what it is, if you're slowing down to actually see like what's in front of you, you could make a cup of tea and sit and look outside, and like that could be an act of a moment you're creating, because we're creating all day every day, but it's a matter if we're there to actually see it. And I think when we're creating something intentionally, it allows us to kind of be like looking out of a window in on our lives. That helps us like snap here and actually be here. So I think wrapping something up and putting it out there, I think that's why it's so beautiful and it feels like it brings you here to the moment. And I think the whole goal is to like if you're looking at a clock and it's like each hand on the hour, it's like the goal is to be here for each click of the hour. So I think we all want that. So I think the more practices we have, a yoga practice, a mindfulness practice, I've always thought of the podcast as a practice. I think there's so many ways to have these practices in our life that give us meaning and purpose, but also help train us to be here no matter what's happening, because life's always going to be life. There's so many beautiful ways to create, infinite ways to create. And I think the more that we can train our brains to tune in and focus on that, the more we get to enjoy our life and share that light with people around us. And just, it's a ripple effect. And I think that's what the podcast, when we initially started it, what it was. And it was an ignition. And I think there's so many things that can ignite our life. But I think being able to spread that light with other people, of course, it's going to be really connective and really satisfying. And like going back to your music, it's the same thing. It's an exciting burst forward in life that it is just a strong feeling of, wow, I've created something. I'm here and I'm experiencing it.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Found myself during that, like having things I wanted to reply, and then
Well, I
being
noticed I
like,
actually got your attention. Like I noticed like you like looked at me a certain way, so I got your attention.
right, and that's kind of what we're talking about here is attention, and where is your attention going?
Exactly. Yeah, you came too, and were looking at me, and I could tell you were listening to me, and that felt really good. But it's exactly what I was saying in that moment of like, the practice is so that we can actually be here.
Curious, what did you see in me that shifted? Because I did have a moment where I like contacted your eyes, and I feel like I was like feeling what you were saying, and like alternatively, like I kept thinking about what to say back, I think.
It's hard to explain. Like you looked at me, and I could feel that you were listening. It was just a feeling thing. Like you were there, and you were looking at me, and your eyes were lit up, and it made me feel good.
Well, it's almost like I became so embodied in you in that moment. Like, and this is the interesting thing about like presence and awareness, and how something I wrote a song about today was like we build up this character in our mind of who we are and what we are and who we think we are. And if you're living in the mind, you have that internal experience. But when you come out of the mind, where are you? Well, you're kind of with whatever's in front of you. So then I become with Daisy and her expression. I get to embody in the expression that she's expressing. And then it becomes a really beautiful act of connection. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking just now of something that you mentioned to me about Henry Matisse. At the end of his life, you said something like he knew he was going to die in the next like decade, so he just spent all of his life painting. But you said a quote from him. He said, creating art is a way of life. And everything I just said kind of made me think back to that. The goal, like, we want to fill up our days with more and more and more and more intentional creation. So I guess reflecting back, I really understand from this conversation just a little bit more about what he said, a little bit more there. And I think that's a really beautiful, like, I'm feeling that, I guess. It's a really beautiful way of life that we all desire. And I think as you create, it gets you closer to that. And that's why creating is an act, is a way of life, because it helps you get closer to that. Because like when I first heard that, I was like, right, yeah, it is. But the more like you create the act we're actually creating right now, the more I'm reflecting on it, the more I can like connect with it, because it's not a logical thing, it's a feeling thing, and that's what we connect to when we create. So
Yeah, just to add something, I think it's Henry Matisse. I thought it was really cool. He came up, so I use Open Meditation app. Shout out to Open. I've meditated probably like every single day for the past 6 months on that app. Incredibly powerful. There's all these quotes. Like today, the quote was, "The quest for certainty blocks the search for meaning. Uncertainty is a very condition to impel man to unfold his powers." Eric Fromm is the guy or the
I
person's
think that
name
might just
that
be
said it.
Eric.
Why does it spell like Eric? But Bonnet, that's our dog, future dog's name. So I always end up looking up these people because I'm like, oh, that is a very beautiful quote. And there's something so interesting here about hearing the quote on this meditation app, and then there's these quotes of these artists, and you see how intertwined it is. So for me, that got me always thinking of like, oh, I'm onto something here because I've been prioritizing meditation. I've been prioritizing connecting to myself. But anyway, the point I want to make is that one thing I really liked from Henry Matisse, and if you go look at his art, it's all like squiggly art, and he did a lot of like stuff in like dining rooms, but he uses such squiggles and such different colors. And I read at first like there was resistance towards that, and he had such adamant of like not changing himself, like to just share what was coming up. And I've read that so many times, and what I thought was just so fascinating about that is like whatever you're creating, whatever it is, you're probably going to judge it. You're probably not think it's not going to be good. You're going to see all these things wrong with it. But just remember that when you tear all that down, you'll start to see how beautiful it is because it's you. And it's you coming out. It's you coming out on paper. It's your drawing. It's your words. I can go into the whole extension of this is their original thought, collective consciousness, Rick Rubin, all that channeling. But coming back here, because everything is and isn't, on one factor, we are all very unique in our life experiences on this earth. And to be able to connect to that uniqueness and to embody that and to go, that's me. There's a really I made that and it's valuable. I think that's a really, really beautiful thing to experience. So looking at his paintings, what I saw was magic. And I'm sure what he first saw was like, oh, these are weird squiggles. And it's the only difference is that he didn't give up. And that's the only difference, I think.
Well, I guess that is believing in yourself. And I guess like that is the whole point. It's not necessarily notoriety. I can't say the word notoriety or fame or validation. It's following through on yourself. And gosh, I guess that's such a cheesy cliche line at the top of the iceberg, because that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like you can go really deep with that lane of thought of just be yourself. But I think it's like, well, what does it mean to be yourself and put that into like an actual verb? What does that mean to hold yourself accountable to keep doing something because you know you love it, even when it's hard or uncomfortable? But also, I think knowing that is one bucket of life, knowing that there's so many other buckets of life as well. I know for me, like when I've created things, like I just put all of my focus, intention, and validation, and I guess validation of myself into that. And I guess there was times of like when we were doing the podcast that was true. And I think that is like a very fragile line you walk when you are creating something and you're putting it out there, is to not get, I don't know if a full head's right, but dependent on the validation and forget why you were doing it in the first place. I think that is a fine line that you walk. And I do think that that was something that I started to get obsessed with, like putting on social media and this and that. And like these are all wonderful things. But it's like knowing for myself that the reason I'm doing this is because of the feeling we get right now when we do it.
And that is why I recorded over and over and over and over and over again my music before I shared it on social media. Because exactly that, ultimately, you have to know. It's not going to come from a thought. It's going to be from the heart space. It's going to be a feeling of, like, when I got the book idea, I cried. It was like, I can't even put it into words. It's just when something clicks and you just know and you're like, yes, this is it. And you want to give yourself a chance to get to that place, I think, from my experience, before you put it out into the world, so that you have a strong enough foundation of your house that you're not going to get knocked over by one storm. Because there's going to be storms, presumably. Maybe there won't be storms. I don't know. But there probably will be some level of storms. So for me, like, I just posted that video in my head. I'm like, oh, I'm curious if people saw it. And then all these things. And it's like, none of that matters. What matters is staying connected. And that's why I will go home and play more music for myself. It never was about anybody else, although I'm very excited about collaborating and things like that. And I think that's just a really beautiful reminder of like having a sacred or intentional way that you're creating. And for me, I treated my guitar like, if I'm not in the headspace right now, I'm not going to look at this. Or if I'm not in the headspace right now, I'm going to use it as a tool to work through that. But I'm not, this is like protected. Like, it's in like the Glass Hall of Fame. It's like my baby. And I think there's something really beautiful about treating your craft like that, so you can shield it from getting damaged and from it becoming now part of your life of all the other things that you self-sabotage.
I guess when I said creation is just a bucket in your life, what I mean is really kind of what you're saying too. It's like, just because you found something that you love doesn't mean that it can be the only place you derive a sense of self-care from, or a sense of purpose from. It's a bucket in the overarching life. And maybe that's something that I really didn't learn in the last year when we ripped this rug of a podcast from underneath us and stopped doing it, was that it was kind of an identity, like, what am I doing now? And I think my learning is that there's so many ways to derive this feeling of electricity and excitement for life. And clearly the podcast is one. It means so much to me and it's not replaceable. But there's other things like yoga, like breathwork, other ways to make sure you're taking care of yourself that are going to allow you to also keep going with your creations when you do have that internal battle going on inside, when you're trying to believe in yourself, when you're trying to be confident. It's like there has to be other places that are going to make you feel grounded, and like a reminder that, hey, creating's good, but it's not everything. It's not like the all in. Let's not martyr yourself to create something that will be lasted for the world. I think like Elizabeth Gilbert had a really good opinion or quote on this, of like, there's this idea of a starving artist, or an idea of like, if you are one who creates, you will be one who has an ill-fated future of something horrible because you're an artist. And she was like, I reject that entirely. I think creation and creativity is meant to enhance our lives. And I really like that take, because like creativity, healthy, there's a reason we learn it in school. Like, it's so important. It's the reason we have art class. It's like, it is a bucket in our overarching life, and it fills certain things, but it's not going to fill all your needs. And I think what you said, like protecting your craft, it's like knowing when to put it away and when to go do something else, go hang out with friends or go do whatever other buckets you fill your life up with. So I think that that's a really helpful way to separate it for me, because it's really easy to just get like focused in on one thing and to be like, yeah, I can let the rest of my life go. And like, look, we moved to Austin and we just went all in on the podcast, posting it twice a week, and that was not protecting the bucket. You know what I mean? So that's a reflection I've had about creation, is the same way that you wouldn't, I mean, maybe some people would run 50 miles every day and expect not to get tired. It's like planning for the realities of life to be able to sustain your craft and balance it with enjoying your life as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Because ultimately, we just want to live a well-rounded life, and we want to live here. And I guess using creation as an act, as a way to help us live here and be here more. And I think that ultimately is what's going to enhance our lives. And that's the point, because we're here now. So let's live it. Let's be here and experience it and find all the different things that help us embrace that. And as we talked for 40 minutes today about it, creation is a great resource to help us feel like we're here and to help us see ourselves and to experience life as this magical realm that it is. And as of right now, like, we're sitting in the hatch of a car and we're looking out at this forest, and it's beautiful and it's green, and we just like went somewhere with this podcast, and now I get to go back out there and enjoy it. It's the privilege of being able to, I get to create, I get to do this, and I also get to go back out there and live.
It's finding spaces in our life that allow for that inner transformation of returning here and physically watching the energy shift and everything change, where you just find yourself back with, connected to, and a part of everything around you. And I think it's a beautiful way to close out the conversation of everything in life is just a vessel, I think, to open our hearts and to open our souls and to form a deeper understanding and have a deeper meaning of life, so that we can find that level of peace and connection amidst the never-ending question of why am I here? What am I doing here? It's possible to feel connected. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that's why well, I agree. And I think that's why I often buy like a piece of art. That's funny. It's like a moped. Someone rolled into the driveway. But I think that's why it's like it feels so good to support other creators and other artists and buy whatever it is that they create and fill your homes with it, because their experience with creating and what that brought to them is now brought to you with whatever it is that you consume from their creation. And I think that that's really funny. I think this is what you get when you film in public places, I guess. Yeah. Some other unexpected entertainment. But yeah, I think it's just such a gift that we get to create, and there's others who are creating, and we get to experience their creations too. So a lot of talk about creation here. Yeah. So thank y'all. We're going to post more on Instagram, I guess, with some updates, but ultimately it feels really good to be chit-chatting, and thank y'all for being here.
Whatever called you to this podcast, and I'm glad that you were able to find that space to listen, and I hope that it led to some level of moving into the body and connection to something perhaps larger than you and larger than any of the narratives you live in. Thank you for being a part of our journey. Talk to you soon.